to Bytes, Buzz and Beyond Deep Dive podcast, everyone. Hey there, Deep Dive partner. Ready to jump into this wacky Deadpool and Wolverine movie? You want to go deeper than the usual, superhero stuff?
Right.
Like, what's this film saying about the MCU? Maybe even about us.
Buckle up.
We're going deep. And get this. You sent over a whole treasure chest of reviews.
Yeah.
Esquire Roger Ebert, even one from the Downey Patriot.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, some of these reviewers did not hold back. One even said it was the savior of the MCU.
Wow.
So is that just hype? Or is something bigger going on here?
Good question.
That's what we're going to find out. But first, a super quick recap for anyone who hasn't seen it yet.
Okay.
Esquire sums it up like this. Deadpool's just hanging out being Deadpool. When who shows up at the Time Variance Authority? You know, those timeline cops.
Yeah, those guys.
Apparently the multiverse has sprung a leak, and Deadpool's the unlikely plumber, they call him.
Makes sense.
And of course, he teams up with Wolverine. Because what's a multiversal adventure without your grumpy, immortal best friend?
Right.
Their mission: stop some baddies from hitting the cosmic reset button. So, typical superhero stuff on the surface.
Right. That's where it gets interesting. Esquire calling it a savior. That's a pretty bold statement.
It is.
Is it just a really fun movie? Or is it doing something actually revolutionary with the genre?
Yeah, is this like groundbreaking stuff? That's what.
What we're here to unpack.
All right, let's unpack it. And I think a good place to start is with our dynamic duo. Almost every review raved about the chemistry between Jackman and Reynolds.
And for good reason. These guys are close in real life, and that genuine friendship, it just explodes on screen. This is way more than just your typical buddy cop thing. The humor's funnier, the action's more exciting, and you totally buy into their
Bod. Absolutely. Ebert even compares them to iconic duos like Bob Hope and Bing Crosby.
Wow.
That's high praise.
It is.
And speaking of iconic pairings, he also snuck in a reference to those old road movies.
Oh, nice. For those in the know.
As a whole other layer to their dynamic.
Subtle, but brilliant. It shows you how aware the filmmakers are of cinematic history and how they can weave in these little nods without alienating viewers who might not get it.
He's right. It's like an inside joke for those who catch it, but don't. It doesn't take away from the experience at all.
Right.
But speaking of things that might take away from the experience, can we talk about the elephant in the room?
Yeah.
Or should I say Deadpool core? The fan service. Esquire seemed a little overwhelmed by all the references and cameos.
Oh, I see.
How'd you feel about it?
It's like walking a tightrope, you know?
I did.
Tom's guide had a good point about that fan service. It's a double-edged sword.
Totally.
On the one hand, it's like this fun little wink to the audience. Like, we see you, we're fans too. But if you have too much, the story starts to feel like an afterthought. You went to this superhero buffet and just stuffed yourself with Easter eggs.
Okay.
But you leave feeling kind of empty.
Yeah, I get that. So did Deadpool and Wolverine strike that balance? Or did it just take a swan dive into the fan service abyss? What about you? What stood out to you with all those references? Let's put those cameos and inside jokes aside for a sec, though, and talk about something even more meta. The film's relationship to the MCU itself. Ebert's review really dug into that.
Yeah, it did.
And it's actually a fascinating thing to unpack.
It is. It's like what Ebert's saying is, this isn't just a superhero movie.
Right.
It's like a commentary on superhero movies.
Yeah, that.
And Disney's influence, it's front and center and all that.
It's like the movie's holding a mirror up to the whole franchise.
Yeah. And remember that scene with the metaphorical junkyard?
Oh, yeah.
That's not just there to look cool,
Yeah.
It's got all this stuff from those pre-Disney superhero movies, like old props on a studio backlot.
Interesting.
Is it self-deprecating? Is it like a little dig at their rivals? I don't know. It's up to you to decide. And I think that's what makes it so interesting.
It's weird, right? It's funny, but kind of sad, too. Like, all these characters, these franchises, they've got this whole history, this legacy, and now they're trying to find their place in this new world. This Disney-fied world.
Yeah, and speaking of trying to find your place, we can't forget about Fox.
Oh, right, of course.
This movie, it's almost like a superhero movie mourning a studio that got swallowed up by the very company that's making it.
Yeah, that's true.
That's pretty poignant. And Ebert definitely picks up on that.
Yeah.
And audiences do too.
It's like the movie's winking at us.
Yeah.
Like, we know this is kind of messed up, right?
Exactly. And it's self-aware without being too cynical about it. There's a playfulness to it, which totally fits with Deadpool,
Wow. And speaking of playful irreverence, we got to talk about those lines Ebert quoted.
Which ones?
You know, the ones about cocaine and Gossip Girl?
Oh, yeah.
That's not your typical superhero dialogue.
No, it's not. But that's what makes this movie so fun. It's not afraid to, like, break the rules, make fun of itself, even poke fun at the studio in charge.
Yeah, they really went there.
Yeah.
It's like this crazy mix of action humor and like existential dread.
With a little bit of corporate satire sprinkled on top.
Right? Okay, but let's not get too caught up in the whole meta commentary thing.
Okay.
Because under all the jokes and explosions, this movie's got a surprising amount of heart.
Oh, absolutely. This isn't just a dumb superhero flick.
None at all.
Both Deadpool and Wolverine, they're carrying a lot of baggage.
They are.
They're messed up in their own ways, you
Right.
know, and
Yeah.
they're both just trying to find some redemption.
Definitely. And that theme of redemption, it kind of works on a bunch of different levels. Tom's guide even pointed out how the movie seems to be dealing with how the MCU's doing right now. Like one character even says it's at a low point.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But you wonder, are they doing that on purpose?
Mm.
Are they mirroring what the audience is feeling? Like a kind of superhero fatigue? Are we the ones who need redemption?
Now, that is an interesting thought.
Right.
And it really speaks to how aware this film is of where we are right now, you know? Like, we're drowning in superhero stories. Maybe we don't need another big epic battle right now. Maybe what we need is to just laugh at it all.
Yeah.
Laugh at the absurdity of it all.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then maybe a film as self-aware and funny as Deadpool and Wolverine. Maybe that's exactly what we need.
The Downey Patriot seemed to think so. They loved the film's energy, called it a much-needed shot of fun into a genre that's gotten, well, a little predictable.
Yeah, I can see that.
Right. And that brings us right back to our original question.
What's that?
Can this film actually save the MCU? Esquire seemed to think so. But Tom's guide wasn't quite convinced. What about you? Did Deadpool and Wolverine like reinvent what a superhero movie can be? Or was it just a really, really fun time?
It's kind of both, right? I mean, it's not like they threw out the rule book, but that's kind of what makes it work, I think. It knows what it is, you know? This meta, irreverent action comedy dressed up in a superhero costume, and it just goes for it.
Oh, like Evert said, it's all riff. And when you think about it, that's what comic book movies are all about, right?
Exactly.
They're supposed to be these big, crazy, over-the-top spectacles, and this one just takes it to the next level.
It does. It just embraces the absurdity of it all and somehow manages to be hilarious and kind of deep at the same time. It's like, it's a commentary on superhero movies. It's thinking about corporations taking over. It's even a surprisingly sweet story about two really messed up dudes just looking for some peace.
Wow, it's a lot. All wrapped up in this spandex-wearing fourth wall-breaking package.
Right.
Talk about a multiversal experience. Maybe all our deep dives. The real question is, what did you take away from it?
Yeah. Did it make you feel like, okay, the MCU's got some life left in it? Or did it kind of make that superhero fatigue even worse?
Like, maybe it's time for this calendar to take a break.
Maybe.
It's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
Because whether you loved it or hated it, I think Deadpool and Wolverine shows us how our own relationship with these stories and these characters is changing.
Does.
This whole world of these expanding universes. It's really fascinating.
And on that note.
And that's all for us today. Deep dive from Bytes, Buzz, and beyond. Don't forget to subscribe. See you around.